The alien princess pointed at the human and said, "Mother, I want this on the human ship Odyssey floated silently above the shimmering blue-green planet, its polished hull reflecting the light of a distant star." Inside, Commander Elias Kane stood at the observation deck, staring down at the sprawling city below. Towers twisted toward the sky like living trees, and rivers of light wound their way through streets crowded with alien citizens. He had seen many worlds in his career, but nothing had prepared him for the grandeur of the Lorathian Empire. Elias adjusted his uniform nervously. The mission that had brought him here was simple in words, but complex in reality. He was the first human diplomat allowed to step foot inside the Imperial Palace. Humanity had been in contact with many alien civilizations, but the Lorathians were different. They were older, wiser, and more technologically advanced than any species humans had encountered. A single misstep could ruin decades of diplomatic effort, and Elias felt the weight of that responsibility pressing on his shoulders. The doors to the observation deck opened with a soft hiss. Lieutenant Maris, his second-in-command, stepped in, her expression serious. "Sir, the palace escort has arrived. We are cleared to land and meet the royal delegation." Elias nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Let's make sure we leave a good impression." The landing was smooth. The palace's docks were vast and gleaming, with floating platforms that seemed to hover effortlessly above the ground. As the human delegation descended, Elias noticed the Lorathian guards. Tall and elegant, their skin shimmered with soft metallic hues. Their eyes, large and almond-shaped, observed every movement with precision. Elias swallowed his nervousness and followed the procession into the palace proper. The throne room was unlike anything Elias had imagined. The walls were translucent, showing the clouds and stars beyond. Light poured in from unknown sources, casting intricate patterns on the polished floor. At the far end, two figures stood. A regal woman adorned in flowing robes that sparkled like liquid silver, and beside her, a young princess with hair that shimmered like moonlight. The princess's eyes were striking, a color Elias couldn't name, and they were fixed on him. Elias felt a strange pull, as if the princess's gaze was probing his very thoughts. He straightened his posture and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he hoped was understood in Lorathian culture. "Welcome, humans," the queen said, her voice calm and melodic. "I am Empress Celara, ruler of the Lorathian Empire. You honor us with your presence." "Your Majesty," Elias replied, "it is humanity's honor to meet the leaders of such a great civilization. We come in peace and hope to build a lasting friendship between our worlds." The queen inclined her head gracefully. Elias noticed a subtle tension in her posture, a flicker of curiosity and perhaps caution. He understood humans were new to her people. They did not yet know what to expect from this young, ambitious species. Then the moment that would define Elias' visit occurred. Princess Liara, the young royal beside her mother, pointed directly at him. "Mother," she said, her voice clear and confident, "I want this one." The room went silent. Alien courtiers blinked, unsure how to respond. The queen's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment even the human delegation was at a loss for words. Elias' stomach tightened. Did she mean to select him for some strange ceremonial role? Was this a test? Empress Celara's lips curved into a small, enigmatic smile. "Very well," she said finally. "If it is your choice, my daughters will be heard." Her voice carried authority, but Elias could detect amusement as well. He remained calm, though his mind raced. "Princess Liara," he said carefully, "I am honored by your attention. I hope to be a worthy guest in your court." Liara tilted her head, studying him with intense curiosity. "You look different from all the others, brave but careful, clever but kind. I like that." Elias could not help but smile at her words. There was a warmth in her gaze, but it was accompanied by an unmistakable spark of mischief. He realized quickly that the princess was testing him, though not with words or logic. It was something subtler, something that could only be felt through presence and action. The queen stepped forward. "Elias Kane, you will stay at the palace as our guest. You will dine with us, learn our ways, and share the knowledge of your people. The court will observe you, and you will observe the court. This is both a privilege and a responsibility." Elias bowed again, more deeply this time. "I accept your majesty. I will do my best to honor your trust." As he followed the princess and her mother through the palace, Elias marveled at the beauty and sophistication around him. Rooms shifted shape and size with the flick of a gesture. Floors glowed softly with patterns that seemed alive, and corridors curved impossibly, as if the architecture itself were fluid. Every step revealed wonders he could never have imagined on Earth. Liara led him to a chamber filled with floating spheres of light that moved like planets in orbit. "This is the Gallery of Knowledge," she explained. "Each sphere contains information about our history, science, and art. You may touch them and they will show you what you contain." Elias reached out tentatively and touched a sphere. It expanded, revealing the story of a great Lorathian voyage across the stars. Images, sounds, and emotions flooded his senses. He realized that Lorathians had mastered not just technology, but also a form of storytelling that engaged the mind and soul simultaneously. "You seem impressed," Liara said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "I am," Elias admitted. "Your people have achieved wonders beyond human imagination, but I hope humanity can show you things too." Liara studied him closely. "We will see," she said simply, and there was a glint of challenge in her eyes. Over the next several hours, Elias was introduced to various aspects of Lorathian society. He observed their meals, which seemed to nourish both body and mind. He watched scholars debate complex theories while balancing on floating platforms. He even participated in a training exercise that involved zero-gravity coordination and quick decision-making. Despite the strangeness, he adapted quickly, drawing on his human instincts and problem-solving skills. The more Elias learned, the more he realized why Liara had chosen him. Humans might not have the same physical or technological prowess as Lorathians, but they had creativity, adaptability, and moral judgment, qualities that were rare even in the galaxy's most advanced species. As evening approached, the palace shifted its lighting to a softer, golden hue. Elias found himself on a balcony overlooking the city, the stars above reflecting in the rivers below. Liara joined him, standing silently for a moment before speaking. "You are not like the others," she said softly. "Most visitors are afraid or arrogant or too careful. You face things as they come. That is why I chose you." Elias looked at her, understanding dawning. "And what do you hope will come of this choice?" Liara smiled faintly. "I hope you teach us something new, and perhaps we can teach you as well." The words carried weight, but there was also a playfulness to them. Elias realized that the princess's choice was not just about him. It was about what humans represented: curiosity, courage, and the potential for greatness. The night deepened, and the palace's lights reflected in the tranquil water below. For the first time since arriving, Elias felt a sense of hope. Humanity had taken its first step into the wider galaxy, and he had been chosen not by strength or wealth, but by character. In that moment, the human diplomat knew that this mission would define not just his life, but the future of his species. The path ahead was uncertain and dangerous, but also filled with wonder. And as Princess Liara's gaze met his, he understood that their journey together had only just begun. The palace doors closed behind them, the soft hum of alien technology filling the corridors. Outside, the city shimmered like a living jewel, and the stars stretched endlessly above. Humanity had arrived in the stars, and for the first time it felt like home. The next morning, the sun, or what the Lorathians called the twin glow orbs, cast a gentle light across the palace. Commander Elias Kane woke in a guest chamber unlike anything he had seen before. The walls seemed alive, shifting softly with colors that reflected the mood of the palace. He rose from the bed, still trying to absorb the grandeur around him, and dressed in the uniform that marked him as a human envoy. A soft chime sounded, announcing Princess Liara's arrival. She entered with quiet elegance, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Good morning, Elias," she said, her voice carrying both warmth and energy. "Today you will see what life is like for a Lorathian beyond these halls. Are you ready?" "I think so," Elias replied with a small smile, "though I suspect I will be surprised at every turn." Liara laughed lightly. "That is exactly what I hope for. Come." She gestured toward a floating platform which adjusted its height to meet them. "We have much to show you." The platform lifted gently into the sky, hovering over the city. From above, Elias could see the vastness of Lorathian society. Buildings twisted into shapes that seemed impossible by human logic. Roads glowed with movement and citizens. Some with wings, some with translucent skin, moved in perfect harmony. The scale was breathtaking, yet there was also a calm order to it all. "You see everything from above," Liara explained. "It is easier to understand our world when you see it all at once. Each part has its purpose, every being its place. And yet there is room for change, for innovation. That is why I am interested in you, Elias. Humans bring a different perspective. Elias nodded. I hope I can show you something worthy of interest. They descended into a sprawling plaza filled with floating gardens. Plants of all colors hovered in midair, their roots twisting like delicate ribbons. Soft music filled the air, though no instruments were visible. It seemed to emanate from the very environment itself. Liara led him through the gardens, explaining how the Lorathians cultivated plants that could think, respond to emotions, and even communicate in subtle ways. This is your first real test, Liara said mischievously. Do not harm the gardens. If you do, the plants will let me know immediately. Elias approached a particularly striking plant with luminous petals. As he studied it, he felt a faint warmth, as though the plant were observing him in return. Carefully, he reached out and touched a petal. A soft vibration ran through his fingers, and he felt an almost musical note resonate in his mind. He had not expected such a reaction. The humans are sensitive, Liara commented, watching him. That is unusual for your kind. Most are either too timid or too reckless. I've learned to pay attention, Elias said honestly. Sometimes understanding comes from noticing what others overlook. Liara's eyes gleamed. Then perhaps you will fit in better than I thought. After the gardens, they visited the Library of Streams, a structure that defied conventional physics. Information flowed through liquid ribbons suspended in midair. Elias watched as Liara dipped her hands into the ribbons and knowledge poured into her mind, history, science, art, all in a seamless flow. She guided Elias to a nearby ribbon. Try it, she encouraged. Do not fear what you do not understand. Elias hesitated, then placed his hands into the stream. At first it was overwhelming. Thoughts, images, and sensations cascaded over him like a tidal wave. Yet, as he focused, he began to sort through them, finding patterns, understanding concepts, and even experiencing emotions linked to the information. He realized that Lorathian learning was not just about knowledge. It was about feeling, intuition, and connection. You are faster than I expected, Liara said, clearly impressed. Humans may be young, but your minds are agile. Elias laughed softly. I have to be to survive. The day continued with more introductions to Lorathian life. They visited training halls where citizens practiced coordination in zero-gravity arenas. Aliens with multiple limbs moved in complex patterns, their bodies seemingly in perfect harmony with physics. Liara encouraged Elias to join, though he was cautious at first. You will not hurt anyone, she said, and I want to see how humans handle challenges they are not built for. Elias took a deep breath and stepped into the arena. At first, his movements were clumsy. Gravity, or the lack of it, was difficult to predict. He stumbled, twisted awkwardly, and narrowly avoided colliding with floating obstacles. But as he continued, he relied on instinct, observation, and human ingenuity. He found ways to use momentum, leverage, and timing to navigate the arena successfully. Liara watched closely, nodding in approval. Impressive, she said. You adapt quickly, which is rare among our species. Most would take much longer to learn. By midday, Elias was exhausted but exhilarated. Liara led him to a quiet terrace overlooking a flowing river of light that ran through the city. They sat in silence for a moment, watching as small vessels glided along the river, carrying citizens from place to place. You see, Elias, Liara said softly, we are advanced, yes. But we are also cautious. Every choice has consequences. Humans, you take risks, yet you survive them. That is intriguing to me. Elias thought about her words. I suppose humans are not naturally cautious, he said. We rely on creativity, cooperation, and sometimes luck. It is not always perfect, but it works, Liara smiled. It works better than many of my people think. That is why I chose you, not because of strength, not because of wealth, but because of your mind and your heart. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. Few beings had ever praised him in such a way, and none from another species. He realized that Liara's choice was not casual. It was deliberate, thoughtful, and perhaps even courageous. Later, they joined a council meeting where Elias observed Lorathian governance. He was struck by how advanced yet human the discussions felt. Aliens debated with logic, empathy, and foresight. Liara's presence seemed to influence the council subtly, and her occasional glances at Elias were noticed by few but carried silent meaning. During a break, Elias was approached by an older Lorathian named Terrell, a scholar and advisor. "Commander Kane," he said in a voice that resonated with experience, "your presence here is unusual. Few humans have been invited to participate at this level. Your species is underestimated." "I am aware," Elias replied, "and I hope to show that humans can contribute more than anyone expects." Terrell nodded. "Indeed, you have courage, curiosity, and a willingness to learn. These are qualities that matter, even in a galaxy as old as ours. Do not lose them." As evening approached, Liara invited Elias to a private meal. The dining chamber floated high above the palace gardens, with transparent walls that offered a panoramic view of the city bathed in the glow of the twin stars. The meal itself was an experience, food that responded to thought, textures that changed with emotion, and flavors that evoked memory and imagination. Elias ate carefully, savoring both the taste and the ingenuity behind it. "You humans have something unique," Liara said during the meal. "You are small, fragile, and yet capable of great ideas. That is rare in a galaxy filled with strength and longevity." "I suppose necessity teaches us," Elias said. "We do not have the natural advantages of many species, so we must rely on wit, determination, and cooperation." Liara's eyes gleamed. "And that is why I am interested in you, not because you are like us, but because you are not. You challenge me, challenge my people, and perhaps challenge the galaxy in ways we have not yet imagined." Elias felt a surge of pride and humility. He was just one human, but he realized that his actions could reflect the potential of his entire species. The thought was both exhilarating and daunting. As the night deepened, the palace grew quieter. Elias stood at the balcony once more, looking out over the city and stars. Liara joined him, placing a hand lightly on the railing beside his. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "you will face challenges that test more than skill or knowledge. You will face choices that show what humans truly value. Are you ready?" Elias turned to her and nodded. "I do not know what awaits, but I will meet it as best I can." Liara smiled faintly. "That is all anyone can ask. Come, rest now. Tomorrow our journey continues." As Elias returned to his chamber, he reflected on the day. He had learned much about Lorathian society, yet he knew the real lessons were only beginning. Humans were new to the galaxy, yet they carried something older and perhaps more powerful than technology or strength: the ability to adapt, to think differently, and to act with courage and heart. He lay on the soft surface of his bed, looking out at the stars. For the first time in his life, he felt a deep connection to the galaxy beyond Earth. And he knew, with quiet certainty, that his time with Princess Liara and the Lorathians would not just change him, but perhaps change humanity's place in the stars forever. The palace hummed softly with life, the twin stars casting a gentle glow. Outside, the city sparkled like a river of light, and Elias knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, wondrous, and full of possibilities. And somewhere above it all, Princess Liara watched, confident in her choice, and curious about the human who had already begun to impress her in ways no other being had. The following morning, the palace was filled with a sense of anticipation. Commander Elias Kane awoke to the soft glow of the twin stars filtering through the shifting walls of his chamber. Today was not just another day of sightseeing or learning. It was the day of his first true trial. He dressed carefully, knowing that every move, every choice, and every word could affect not just his reputation, but humanity's standing with the Lorathians. When he arrived in the central hall, Princess Liara was waiting. She greeted him with her usual calm confidence, but there was a sparkle of excitement in her eyes. "Elias, today you will see what it truly means to be tested here. The trials are not just about strength or intelligence. They are about heart, judgment, and adaptability. Are you prepared?" "I will do my best," Elias said, trying to steady his nerves. "I may not be as strong or as fast as your people, but I will face whatever challenges you give me." Liara smiled faintly. "That is why I chose you. Strength is not always measured in muscle or speed. Sometimes it is measured in decisions, creativity, and courage." The two of them walked through the palace corridors to a large chamber that had been prepared for the trials. The room was enormous, with walls that shimmered and shifted as if alive. Various obstacles floated in the air, platforms that rotated unpredictably, streams of energy that needed to be avoided, and objects that appeared and disappeared in patterns that challenged perception. A council of Lorathian elders, including Empress Celara, observed from a raised platform at the far end of the room. A soft voice echoed through the chamber. Elias Kane, you will face 3 trials. The first tests your intelligence and reasoning. The second tests your adaptability and courage. The third tests your judgment and ethics. Succeed, and you will earn the respect of our people. Fail, and you will learn humility. Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward. The first trial began immediately. A series of floating puzzles appeared in front of him, each glowing with complex patterns. He realized that they were not only mechanical but also logical and cultural. Understanding them required knowledge of Lorathian thought, which he had only glimpsed in the past 2 days. He studied the first puzzle carefully. Its pieces floated and shifted, changing shape when approached. Elias took a moment to observe, recalling lessons Liara had taught him. He noticed patterns in how the pieces moved, almost like a dance. Slowly, he began to manipulate the shapes with his hands, predicting their movements and aligning them in a correct sequence. Minutes passed, and the council watched silently. The patterns shifted, becoming more complex, but Elias remained focused. His human intuition guided him where logic alone could not. Finally, the last piece clicked into place, and the puzzle glowed a brilliant blue, signaling success. Liara's eyes sparkled. You are quick to understand, Elias. That is the first step. The second trial began immediately. The chamber shifted, and Elias found himself in a simulated zero-gravity arena. Platforms rotated unpredictably, and streams of energy surged across the floor. The goal was simple: reach the central platform while avoiding hazards. Yet the execution was anything but simple. Elias leapt and twisted, relying on timing and observation. At first he stumbled, almost falling into a stream of energy that would have ended the trial. But he adapted quickly. He noticed the rhythm of the obstacles, predicting their movements. When a rotating platform suddenly tilted, he grabbed a floating ledge and used momentum to propel himself forward. Liara observed closely, silently encouraging him. Remember, strength is not always physical. Use your mind, your instincts, and your courage. You will succeed. After several tense minutes, Elias reached the central platform. The energy streams retracted and the chamber shifted once more. He was breathing heavily, but he had completed the second trial. The final trial was the most difficult. The chamber became a simulated council scenario. Holographic figures appeared, representing alien species in dispute. The simulation presented Elias with a series of complex diplomatic and ethical challenges. He was asked to mediate a conflict over resources, prevent a potential war, and make decisions that balanced logic with morality. At first, Elias felt overwhelmed. The choices were difficult, and each had consequences he could see but not fully predict. He paused, taking a deep breath. He remembered Liara's words: courage, creativity, and heart. He began to listen carefully to each figure, analyzing their motives, fears, and desires. He found solutions that combined fairness with innovation, solutions that respected the needs of all parties while minimizing harm. The holographic simulation responded, and the council nodded in approval. Elias realized that humans might not have the power or advanced technology of the Lorathians, but they possessed something equally important: the ability to see beyond rules and procedures, to imagine solutions that others could not. When the trials concluded, the chamber fell silent. Then Empress Celara rose from her platform. Elias Kane, she said, her voice carrying authority and warmth, you have demonstrated intelligence, adaptability, and ethical judgment. You have faced challenges that many of our people would fail. You honor not just yourself, but your species. Liara stepped forward, her eyes bright with pride. I am pleased, Elias. You have shown that humans can think, act, and lead in ways that are unique and valuable. That is why I chose you. Elias felt a mixture of relief, pride, and humility. The trials had been difficult, but he had succeeded by relying on the qualities that made humans different, not by trying to be like the Lorathians. After the formal acknowledgement, Liara led him to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. The twin stars cast a warm glow, and the city below sparkled like a river of light. You were remarkable today, Liara said softly. I have seen many beings in my life, but few who face challenges with both courage and thoughtfulness. That is rare. Elias smiled, feeling a bond forming that went beyond diplomacy or duty. I could not have done it without your guidance. You have taught me more in these few days than I expected. Liara shook her head slightly. No, you taught yourself. I merely pointed the way. That is why I am interested in humans. You discover solutions even when faced with the unknown. That is a strength of your kind. As they spoke, a soft alarm sounded in the distance. The palace walls shimmered, and sensors indicated the approach of an unknown fleet. Elias and Liara exchanged glances. Though he had just completed the trials, he realized that the challenges he faced in this world were far from over. The fleet belonged to a faction of aliens called the Zarvok, known for their hostility and disdain for humans. They had learned of humanity's presence in the Lorathian Empire and sought to test, intimidate, or possibly attack. The palace sprang into action, with guards preparing defenses and advisors briefing the Empress. Ilias' training, diplomacy, and quick thinking became immediately useful. He suggested strategies that combined human unpredictability with Lorathian technology, unexpected maneuvers, decoys, and coordination that surprised even the seasoned Lorathian commanders. Liara watched him work, clearly impressed. "You see the situation differently," she remarked. "Your perspective is valuable. Most would panic, but you see opportunities." The human-led counter-strategy worked. The Zarvok fleet was deterred, retreating without a fight. While the battle had been small in scale, the result was significant. Humans had proven their worth not only in trials, but in a real threat scenario. Later, in the quiet of the evening, Elias and Liara stood once more on the terrace. The city below was calm, the stars shining as if nothing had happened. "Today was more than a trial," Elias said. "It was a reminder that humans have something to offer in this galaxy, even among beings far more advanced than us." Liara nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "Yes. You have shown that humanity's strength lies not just in your minds, but in your courage, morality, and willingness to face the unknown. That is rare in the galaxy. That is why I chose you, and why I believe your kind has a place here." Elias looked at her, understanding the depth of her words. She did not choose him for superficial reasons or for convenience. She chose him because he represented what humans could be at their best: brave, inventive, ethical, and adaptable. As the twin stars dipped lower on the horizon, Elias felt a surge of hope. Humanity had taken a first step into the wider galaxy, not just as visitors but as participants. And with allies like Princess Liara and the Lorathians, their potential was limitless. The trials of the day had ended, but new adventures and challenges awaited. Elias knew that the galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and dangers, and that humans would have to continue proving themselves. Yet he felt ready. He had survived, learned, and grown. And he had formed a bond with a princess who believed in him, not just as a human, but as a symbol of what humanity could offer the stars. That night, as he rested, Elias thought of the trials, the city, the palace, and Liara. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and perhaps new threats. But he also knew that humans had something rare in the galaxy: the ability to adapt, to persevere, and to inspire those around them. And in that quiet moment, with the twin stars shining above and the city glowing below, Elias Kane felt the promise of a future where humans could stand among the stars, not as subjects, nor as visitors, but as equals. The next morning, the palace was alive with urgency. Commander Elias Kane awoke to the low hum of alarm systems and distant announcements echoing through the halls. The Zarvok fleet, a hostile alien faction, had not been fully deterred the previous day. Instead, they had regrouped, their massive ships now approaching the Lorathian homeworld with more force than anyone had expected. The entire court was on high alert, and the air was thick with tension. Elias dressed quickly, strapping on his human utility vest and preparing his equipment. Though humans were far smaller and physically weaker than the Lorathians, Elias knew that adaptability, quick thinking, and ingenuity could make the difference. He had already gained the respect of Princess Liara and the Lorathian Council, but now he would have to prove that human resourcefulness could hold against a real threat. Liara met him in the central command chamber, her expression serious. "Elias," she said, her voice calm but urgent, "the Zarvok intend to attack today. They underestimate humans. We cannot afford to wait for our larger fleets to arrive. We must act quickly." Elias nodded. "Then we should use their underestimation against them. If they think humans are weak, we can surprise them with tactics they won't anticipate." The Lorathian commanders exchanged glances, a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Humans were not usually part of strategic planning at this level. but Liara's support gave Ilia's influence, and the council allowed him to propose his plan. "We will use the smaller, faster vessels for ambush," Ilias explained, pointing at holographic representations of the approaching fleet. "Our goal is not to destroy them outright, but to disrupt their formations, confuse their command structure, and buy time until reinforcements arrive. We can create false targets, set decoys, and exploit their overconfidence." Liara watched closely, her eyes shining. "I trust your judgment, Ilias. Begin." Over the next few hours, Ilias coordinated with Lorathian pilots and engineers. He adapted human naval tactics to Lorathian technology, suggesting unexpected formations, sudden maneuvers, and the use of energy fields to mislead the Zarvok sensors. He even identified weak points in the approaching fleet, areas where their coordination could fail under pressure. The first clash occurred near the planet's orbit. Small Lorathian ships darted forward like arrows, drawing the Zarvok into a trap. Ilias had instructed the human teams to use synchronized bursts of energy to create illusions of larger fleets, confusing the enemy. The Zarvok commanders, expecting an easy engagement, were caught off guard. Ships collided, commands were misinterpreted, and chaos erupted among their ranks. Ilias watched from the command chamber, heart pounding, as the strategy unfolded perfectly. Lorathian ships, guided by his plans, struck with precision and efficiency. The Zarvok were skilled fighters, but they had underestimated the ingenuity of humans. Princess Liara stood beside him, her expression tense but confident. "You have done well, Ilias. Your human's creativity has turned the tide before it even began." Ilias allowed himself a small smile. "I could not have done it without your trust." Despite the initial success, the battle was far from over. The Zarvok adapted quickly, sending advanced strike teams to target critical points in the Lorathian defenses. Ilias realized that brute force alone would not hold them back. He needed to think several steps ahead. He instructed small human Lorathian teams to create false command signals, sending messages that suggested movement in one direction while the actual fleet maneuvered elsewhere. They deployed energy decoys that looked like vulnerable ships, drawing Zarvok attacks away from key positions. With every move, Ilias anticipated the enemy's reactions, guiding the Lorathian forces with a combination of logic and intuition. Hours passed, and the battle raged across the skies. At one point, Ilias had to personally lead a squad of smaller ships to intercept a group of Zarvok fighters attempting to breach the palace shields. Piloting one of the fast crafts, he relied on human reflexes and improvisation. He dodged energy blasts, maneuvered through tight spaces, and used the environment to his advantage, surprising both the enemy and some Lorathian allies who had never seen such tactics. By late afternoon, the Zarvok fleet was in disarray. Their formations broken, their command structure compromised, they began to retreat. Lorathian ships pursued cautiously, ensuring the threat was neutralized without overextending themselves. The palace shields, thanks to Ilias' coordination, had remained intact, and civilian areas were untouched. The council and court gathered afterward to assess the outcome. Empress Celara spoke first. "Ilias Kane," she said, her voice filled with respect, "you have demonstrated that humans, though small and young in the galaxy, can contribute to strategy, defense, and leadership. Today, you did not merely survive, you led." Liara stepped forward, her expression proud. "I have long believed in humans. Today you proved that their ingenuity, courage, and adaptability are gifts the galaxy cannot ignore." She turned to Ilias, her gaze intense. "I am proud to have chosen you." Ilias felt a mixture of pride and humility. The battle had tested him in ways that were far beyond the trials of the previous days. He had faced real danger, made critical decisions under pressure, and guided beings far more advanced than humans to success. Yet he knew the victory was not just his. It was the combination of human creativity and Lorathian skill, working together in harmony. Later, as the palace quieted and the sun, or twin glow orbs, began to set, Ilias walked through the gardens with Liara. The floating plants shimmered softly in the evening light, and the city below sparkled like a river of stars. "You were remarkable today," Liara said softly. "You adapted, you led, and you protected those who could not protect themselves. That is rare, even among the Lorathians." Ilias shook his head slightly. "I could not have done it alone. Your people are extraordinary. Without their skill and cooperation, we would have failed. I only applied what I have learned and trusted that humans have something unique to offer. Liara smiled faintly. That is exactly why I chose you. You see possibilities where others see only limitations. You take risks, but not recklessly. You think, act, and inspire. That is the essence of what I hoped humanity could bring to the stars. They walked in silence for a moment, listening to the soft hum of the palace and the distant sounds of the city. Ilias felt a deep sense of connection, not just to Liara, but to the idea that humans, despite their small size and relative youth, could stand alongside the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. As night fell, the palace doors opened to reveal a quiet balcony above the gardens. The stars stretched endlessly, and the twin glow orbs cast a soft, silver light across the landscape. Ilias stood beside Liara, gazing out over the city and reflecting on the day's events. You have changed the perception of humans here, Liara said softly. Today, your species earned respect not just for strength, but for heart, ingenuity, and courage. That is something even the strongest weapons cannot achieve. Ilias felt a surge of hope and determination. Humanity had been tested, and it had passed. The galaxy was wide, full of dangers and wonders alike, but humans had a place in it. Not as followers, not as subjects, but as equals, capable of influencing events through creativity, morality, and resilience. Liara's hand brushed lightly against his arm, a gesture of quiet acknowledgement. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, Ilias, but I am confident that with your guidance, humans can meet them. You have shown that even a single human can make a difference. Ilias nodded, feeling the weight and promise of her words. He knew that their journey together was only beginning. Humans had proven themselves in the eyes of one of the galaxy's greatest civilizations, but many challenges awaited. The Zarvok had been repelled, but they were not defeated entirely. New threats, new opportunities, and new alliances would test humanity's strength in ways no one could yet predict. As they returned to the palace, Ilias felt a quiet pride. The trials had been important, but the real test had been the battle. And in that trial, humans had shown that courage, intelligence, and morality were as powerful as any weapon or technology. The night deepened, and the palace settled into calm once more. Citizens of the Lorathian Empire returned to their homes, and the stars shone like silent witnesses to the events of the day. Ilias knew that humanity's journey among the stars was only beginning, but for the first time, he felt that the future was bright and full of promise. Standing beside Princess Liara, he understood something fundamental. Humans were not just small, young, and fragile. They were inventive, courageous, and capable of achieving greatness in ways no one had imagined. And that knowledge, that potential, would guide humanity forward into the stars. Ilias Kane smiled quietly, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of hope. He had faced a real threat, led in battle, and earned the respect of beings far older and more advanced than himself. The galaxy had taken notice, and humanity's place among the stars was no longer a question. It was a promise waiting to be fulfilled. And somewhere above the shimmering city, Princess Liara watched, proud and confident in the human she had chosen, knowing that the galaxy had just begun to see what humans could truly offer.